ancient world had the right attitude to this kind of thing,
Yeah.
and the modern world does not, and that we can sit down and learn a lot from the ancient world.
Earth having an advanced society 100,000 years ago sounds impossible until you hear Graham Hancock say it. His claim has left everyone stunned. Could it be that history as we know it is wrong? That before the rise of all the civilizations we're taught about, there was already a thriving culture with knowledge beyond imagination? Graham Hancock isn't just making vague suggestions. He says he has the proof. Get ready to question everything you thought you knew about human history. This isn't just another theory. It's a direct challenge to the timeline we've been taught, the civilizations we know. When people think about the first civilizations, certain names almost always come up. Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, and the Maya. These societies, separated by geography and time, all hold a special place in history. They are considered the cradles of civilization, places where writing, mathematics, architecture, and organized governments first appeared. Take Mesopotamia, for example. Located in the fertile land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, it gave rise to Sumer, Akkad, Babylon, and Assyria. Clay tablets from Sumer show the earliest known writing system, cuneiform, which was used to record trade, myths, and laws. Without Mesopotamia, the modern idea of a city might never have existed. Then there's ancient Egypt, famous for its pyramids and monumental temples. The Egyptians left behind not only incredible stone structures, but also medical texts, calendars, and complex religious traditions. Their legacy is one of organization and ambition, showing how humans could work together on projects that lasted lifetimes. Farther east, the Indus Valley civilization thrived along the river systems of present-day Pakistan and northwest India. What's fascinating about this culture is its level of urban planning. Archaeologists have uncovered cities like Mohenjo-Daro, where streets followed a grid layout, homes had indoor plumbing, and advanced drainage systems kept the settlements clean. This wasn't just survival, it was sophistication. Across the ocean, the Maya civilization flourished in Central America. They built pyramid temples, created detailed calendars, and developed a system of writing that researchers are still deciphering today. They were astronomers, architects, and mathematicians who observed the skies with incredible accuracy. When we line up these civilizations side by side, the story seems straightforward. Humanity slowly climbed the ladder of progress, moving from scattered hunter-gatherer groups to organized states capable of great works. This is the timeline taught in classrooms around the world, and for good reason. It's backed up by ruins, artifacts, and written records. But here's the catch. Humans like us, Homo sapiens, have been around for roughly 300,000 years. If these civilizations only began to rise around 6,000 years ago, what were humans doing during the other 294,000 years? Were we really just surviving in caves, passing time with stone tools, and waiting for progress to arrive? Or is it possible that entire chapters of our history have simply vanished, erased by time, nature, and catastrophe? This question lingers in the background whenever archaeologists make a new discovery. Every once in a while, something surfaces that doesn't fit neatly into the established story. A site older than expected, a tool more advanced than it should be, or a structure built with techniques that remain unexplained. These anomalies remind us that history is not a finished book. It's a puzzle with missing pieces. Even among the civilizations we know, there are mysteries that hint at forgotten knowledge. How exactly were the pyramids of Giza built with such precision? How did the Indus Valley maintain a sanitation system more advanced than many places had even a century ago? How did the Maya map the movements of the planets without modern instruments? Each of these examples shows us something important. Human ingenuity is not bound to a single place or time. Whenever conditions were right, people pushed the limits of what was possible. And if that's true, then why should we assume that earlier humans, tens of thousands of years ago, weren't capable of similar leaps? This is where the cracks in the timeline start to appear. What if Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, and the Maya weren't the beginning of civilization, but just the survivors of a much older cycle? What if their knowledge and achievements were echoes of something far deeper in human history? Something that existed long before anyone thought cities were possible. This is where Graham Hancock steps in, but let's start from the top. What left us puzzled? If the civilizations we know show us how human societies blossomed, then the ones we don't fully understand remind us how much we're still missing. These puzzling cultures and structures sit at the edge of history, raising questions about what humans were truly capable of and when. One of the most striking examples is Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey. At first glance, it doesn't look much different from other ancient ruins. Stone pillars arranged in circles, carved with animals and abstract symbols. But the real surprise is its age. Archaeologists date Göbekli Tepe to around 11,000 years ago, several thousand years older than Stonehenge or the pyramids of Egypt. Even more surprising is the fact that it seems to have been built by people who, according to the traditional timeline, were still hunter-gatherers. No farms, no permanent cities, no metal tools, yet here we have massive stone monuments requiring planning, cooperation, and specialized skill. Then there are the Olmecs of Central America, often called the mother culture of Mesoamerica. They left behind colossal stone heads, some weighing as much as 40 tons, carved with detailed facial features. No written records tell us who these heads represent, or how they were moved. All we know is that the Olmecs flourished centuries before the Maya and Aztecs, and their sudden rise and mysterious disappearance leave us with more questions than answers. Further east, at Baalbek in Lebanon, the ruins of a Roman temple complex stand on top of something even older. Among the massive stone blocks used in its foundation are some that weigh over 1,000 tons each. These are among the largest stones ever used in construction, so heavy that even with today's cranes, moving them would be a monumental task. Yet they were cut, shaped, and positioned thousands of years ago. Historians debate whether these stones were originally part of a Roman project or remnants of an earlier culture, but the sheer scale of the work sparks endless speculation. These examples highlight an uncomfortable truth. The further we dig into the past, the more we find things that don't quite fit the story we thought we knew. History books tell us civilization started in a neat progression, but discoveries like Göbekli Tepe, the Olmec heads, and the megaliths of Baalbek suggest humans may have had bursts of complexity long before they were supposed to. And these aren't isolated puzzles. All over the world, there are unexplained artifacts and structures that hint at forgotten chapters. The Antikythera mechanism, found in a shipwreck off the coast of Greece, is a bronze device with gears so precise that some call it the first analog computer. It dates to around 2,000 years ago, but for centuries after, no technology of that sophistication appears in the record. Was it a unique invention, or the last surviving echo of knowledge that stretched further back than we realize? Another example lies in Peru, where the Nazca lines stretch across the desert floor. These massive geoglyphs, depicting animals, plants, and geometric patterns, can only be fully appreciated from the air. The Nazca people created them a long time ago, but the reason why remains a mystery. These scattered mysteries share a common thread. They challenge the assumption that human progress has been steady and linear. Instead, they suggest that history may have been more like a series of waves, with peaks of advancement followed by sudden collapses. Civilizations might rise, achieve remarkable feats, and then vanish, leaving behind only fragments that confuse us thousands of years later. This raises a bigger question. If societies like the Olmecs, or sites like Göbekli Tepe, could emerge and disappear without leaving a clear trace of continuity, how many others might have risen and fallen long before written history even began? Could entire civilizations have been lost to time, erased by natural disasters, climate shifts, or simply buried under layers of earth and water? The timeline becomes even more intriguing when you remember how vast human prehistory really is. Homo sapiens have been around for hundreds of thousands of years, but we only have solid archaeological evidence of complex societies for the last few thousand. The gap between those two numbers is enormous. Graham has always wondered what happened in all that time, and now he knows. Traces beneath the surface. If scattered ruins and unexplained monuments on land already challenge the way we think about history, then the world beneath the oceans adds another layer of mystery. Today, more than 70% of Earth is covered by water, and much of the seafloor remains unexplored. It's not hard to imagine that countless traces of our past might be hidden under the waves, preserved and forgotten at the same time. One of the most famous underwater enigmas is the Yonaguni Monument off the coast of Japan. Discovered by a diver in the 1980s, the structure looks like a series of massive stone steps and terraces descending into the sea. Some believe it's a natural formation, shaped by currents and erosion, but others argue the clean angles, platforms, and what appear to be carvings suggest human hands were at work. If that's true, the monument would date back to a time before the last ice age, when sea levels were lower and Yonaguni was dry land. That would make it more than 10,000 years old, predating all recognized civilizations. Farther west, along the coast of India, lies another mystery. Near the modern city of Dwarka, divers have found the remains of walls, streets, and buildings submerged underwater. Legends in the region speak of an ancient city ruled by a great figure, and while myth and history often mix, the structures themselves are real. Some archaeologists date them to around 9,000 years ago. Again, far earlier than conventional timelines allow. If proven, Dwarka could represent a forgotten chapter of urban life, drowned as glaciers melted and sea levels rose. Similar stories come from other parts of the world. Off the coast of Cuba, sonar scans have revealed geometric shapes deep underwater that some say resemble pyramids and roads. In the Mediterranean near Malta, divers explore what looks like an ancient temple floor submerged beneath the sea. This possibility becomes less far-fetched when we consider how much the world has changed since the last ice age. Around 20,000 years ago, vast sheets of ice covered much of North America and Europe. Sea levels were about 300 feet lower than they are today, exposing massive areas of land that are now underwater. When the ice melted, coastlines were swallowed by the sea, erasing entire landscapes. If humans had built cities or towns along those coasts, as people still do today, then much of their history would now be hidden below the waves. It's not just legends and sonar images that suggest this. Geological evidence shows that massive floods occurred as ice sheets collapsed and sea levels rose rapidly. In some places, seas advanced dozens of kilometers inland in a single generation. For ancient people, these events would have been catastrophic. Entire communities could have been destroyed, their structures carried away or submerged in a matter of years. These underwater traces carry profound implications. If sites like Yonaguni or Dwarka are indeed man-made, they push back the timeline of organized societies by thousands of years. More importantly, they suggest that human civilization may not have been as simple or linear as we thought. Instead of a single rise from primitive tribes to modern states, history may have included cycles of growth, collapse, and rediscovery. It also changes the way we view myths. Stories of great floods appear in many cultures, from the Epic of Gilgamesh in Mesopotamia to the tale of Atlantis told by Plato, and the flood narratives in the Americas and Asia. While these stories are often seen as symbolic, they could also reflect memories of real events passed down through generations. If rising seas destroyed cities thousands of years ago, it's easy to see how those events might have been remembered as tales of worlds lost to the waters. Yet for all the tantalizing clues, studying submerged ruins is incredibly difficult. Unlike dry land, the ocean hides evidence, erodes structures, and makes excavation nearly impossible. Sonar images can be misinterpreted, coral can grow over stone, and sediments can bury potential sites. This means that many underwater discoveries remain in the gray zone between science and speculation. Still, with modern technology improving, underwater drones, advanced sonar mapping, and even AI to analyze seabed data, the chances of uncovering real evidence of lost civilizations are higher than ever. Theories that challenge the timeline. Up to this point, we've looked at the civilizations we know, the mysterious cultures that puzzle us, and the submerged ruins that hint at forgotten chapters. Each of these adds weight to the idea that human history is far older and more complicated than the textbooks say. But while ruins and artifacts raise questions, it's the theories, those bold attempts to connect the dots, that really open the door to possibilities as vast as 100,000 years ago. One of the most intriguing is the impact theory. According to this idea, around 13,000 years ago, Earth was struck by fragments of a comet or asteroid. The impact caused widespread fires, sudden climate change, and massive flooding as glaciers melted. Some scientists believe this event wiped out large animal species like mammoths and reshaped human societies. If true, it would also mean that any advanced culture existing at that time could have been devastated, leaving little behind but scattered myths and ruins. It's a theory that resonates with flood stories found across cultures, from Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica. Another idea that challenges the timeline is the concept of sudden leaps in human intelligence. Mainstream archaeology suggests progress was gradual, stone tools improved, farming developed, and cities slowly emerged. But discoveries like Göbekli Tepe or the Antikythera mechanism suggest that sometimes people seem to leap forward much faster than expected. Could this mean that knowledge wasn't always invented from scratch, but rediscovered after being lost? If earlier civilizations had achieved things we don't yet understand, perhaps later cultures inherited fragments of their wisdom, allowing them to advance seemingly out of nowhere. Then, if an advanced civilization had existed millions of years ago, would we even be able to detect it today? Most evidence of our own modern society, buildings, roads, and technology, would erode, corrode, or be buried within a few 100,000 years. In a million, it would be nearly impossible to find. Extend that logic to tens of millions, and the traces would be gone completely. This shows how easily evidence can vanish over deep time. And if this holds true over millions of years, then 100,000 years, a mere blink in geological terms, would certainly allow for the possibility of lost societies whose traces we haven't yet uncovered. The question then becomes, what would we expect to find if such a civilization had existed? Ruins on land and underwater are one possibility. But even more subtle are the anomalies already recorded, artifacts out of place, myths describing advanced knowledge, and unexplained astronomical alignments in ancient structures. These could be faint echoes of something bigger, reminders that our ancestors may have been recording not just their own experiences but memories passed down from long before. The lost civilization. Up until now, the clues have been scattered, ruins older than they should be, monuments submerged beneath the waves, and theories that suggest civilization is not as young as we once believed. But what happens when someone dares to connect those fragments into a single picture? That is exactly what Graham Hancock has done. When he was discussing it with some experts, he said, "They lied to everyone. Earth had an advanced society 100,000 years ago, and I brought proof." At first glance, the number seems impossible. Archaeology teaches us that humans at that time were hunter-gatherers, roaming in small groups, surviving off the land with stone tools. Yet Graham suggests that this view is incomplete. He argues that scattered evidence, myths of floods, sudden leaps in human knowledge, and unexplained structures point to a lost chapter in our story, one that predates everything we currently call civilization. The foundation of his idea draws on that sudden period of climate change. According to Graham, the floods and cataclysms of that time may have erased not just animals like the mammoth, but entire cultures. If there had been an advanced society before, this would have been the moment it disappeared. In his view, what we see in sites like Göbekli Tepe or submerged cities such as Dwarka are not the beginnings of civilization, but the survivors, the ones who carried fragments of knowledge forward after disaster wiped almost everything away.